Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Last week we
Morning.
talked. Last week we talked about um, time and how music ties into time, and things like that, and different things about how time operates. And so today I want to touch a little bit on how that affects us and our lives. And basically from what I'm gathering from the study I'm working on, we live in a matrix. And if any of you have ever seen the movie The Matrix, that is the epitome of a quantum lifestyle, I think. Maybe a little extreme, but it is follows that logic anyway. And so basically what really we're more than a spectator in the inevitable rush of time. I mean, time is just rushes on. Uh, and we have the freedom and the capability to shape reality and to give it value. Our story is a unique part of this cosmic symphony. So as we go through life, it creates a cosmic symphony, and our story is a unique part of that. Um, so, some stories travel in a predictable path and end up exactly where they plan to go. And the further they develop, the more rigid they become, protecting and preserving the meaning of their narrative. And by the end, they mean exactly what they intended to mean from the very start. Now, this might seem like a good thing, but most of the time, those stories are pretty boring, and they really slowly lose their ability to keep anybody's attention. And eventually, they're forgotten. On the flip side, other stories are filled with surprise. I mean, when we go to the movie, we watch a movie. If it's all pretty mundane and everything, we get real bored in a hurry. That's just human nature. And it's like we oh yeah, I've seen this before. I don't want to watch. This is not worth watching anymore. Or watching on TV or whatever. But if we tune into a story that every time we turn around, there's a new surprise or new twist or whatever we want to call it, it holds our attention. And at times these stories seem to fall apart. Uh, and because of unexpected tragedies, or other times it's joy restored in ways that we didn't foresee. The meaning is transformed. Even the beginning gains a new significance from the perspective of the end. And these stories are alive, engaging, enticing, and so what is it that keeps us open to astonishment? How can our life stories remain open to possibilities? And how can the meaning of our existence continue to unfold? Grammar is the structure of language that's necessary to make language understandable and meaning possible. Grammar does not specify the meaning or impose a design upon the stories that might be told. Instead, it creates an environment in which the creative process of meaning/making can take place. Within the boundaries of these rules, we're free to construct concepts and say what's never been said before. This framework gives us the possibility of meaning and not meaning itself. It's a possibility of meaning, but not the meaning itself. Could it be that God's not an entity creating and controlling the narrative, one who's manipulating events and giving value to everything, but rather God is the possibility of meaning. I want you to think about that. What an extravagant gift of freedom that would be. Do you agree?
Yeah, I
As
do.
yeah, as
Would you
Greg, go ahead.
would you repeat that last sentence that you were saying?
Okay,
Okay,
let me see.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. I just have to go back
All,
and see, figure
all,
out where to
all
start.
the all the notes are on the fretboard, Dana. We just get to choose which ones we play.
Yeah. Could could it be that God is not an entity creating and controlling the narrative, one who's manipulating events and giving value to everything? I mean, religion tells us that's how God is.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah.
Yes.
But rather, what if God is the possibility of meaning? Wouldn't that be an extravagant gift of freedom?
Yeah.
It would be an absolute freeing gift. Melissa, what do you got?
I think coming to that realization was one of the most freeing things in as far as the whole deconstruction, because I no longer fell for the narrative. Well, these people got hit with this because of the sin in their life, or
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
if that weren't true what you said, then it would be a God who picks and chooses, and I'm going to send a tornado there, and I'm going to do this there, and we know that that's not the case. So I do believe that.
Well, I think, kind of to expound on this a little bit for me, religion has a tendency to paint God as a cause and effect God. If you do this, this is going to happen. When in reality, God is a entity of love. Stan, you got
Yes.
something?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what happened to my reaction tab. But anyway, I was thinking that, religion tries to tell us that it's a good thing or a positive thing to make a statement like God is in control.
Yeah.
And if you examine it from from exactly what you're saying, that's not a good thing. That's not something that's really an indication of love.
Yeah.
He's given us
Well,
control. Yeah.
And further, if God is in control, it sure makes him complicit in a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
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 And I mean, really, if you look back in scripture and really dig into scripture over and over, not just one time, but over and over, they told us, God, Jesus, the Holy Spirit, they've told us that we're in control. We are the ones that have authority over the things of the earth, the things of our life. And I think what he's talking about, the things of the world, I think he's talking about our world. We are in authority. We have the ability to speak things into existence. And we have the ability to speak things into existence that aren't there, just like he did in creation, make things out of something that's not there, and he uses those things to manifest the good things for us in our life that we portray and that we speak out. So go ahead.
And I agree with you that, I mean, he gave us dominion. He didn't say, I'm going to put you there and I'm going to take dominion, right? He gave us dominion, which means that not only, and I don't mean to put a negative spin on this, but just got to face the balance of it. Not only is there unlimited opportunity in that, there are also consequences if we don't do it correctly.
Yep.
And And,
Well,
and we see,
unlimited responsibility.
exactly, exactly, which brings it back down to earth.
Yeah.
I mean, I wrote a blog not too long ago. Is it finished? I think eternally it is, but look around you.
Mhm.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff right now that I don't think fits the finished product at all.
But it depends on what you're defining it as.
Yeah, well, life and that more abundantly would work. If just off the
Yeah.
top of my head, right? And there's a lot of people in the world that are not living a life and that more abundant, and for a whole variety of reasons. Many of them consequences of the judgment of their judgment, or the judgment of people in power over them, or judgment of other people, and so on and so forth. So yeah, that part's not finished. That
Well, that manifestation isn't finished, but that the plan for that is complete. Does
then
that
we
make
need to get
sense?
that. Then we need to get to executing it.
We need to get what?
We need to execute that plan. We
You're
need
right. You're
we
right.
need to execute that plan. Absolutely. I mean, I absolutely believe there's a plan, and the plan's pretty simple. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbors yourself.
Yep.
That's an ultimate plan.
Yep.
And it's
And you know, when he said on the cross, when Jesus said on the cross, it is finished, everything that we ever need or needed, or everything that we ever need to come to pass is complete. We just don't have we haven't had the foresight, maybe is the best word to say it, the foresight to grab a hold of that and say the things that we should be saying, to make that come to pass. Because we don't believe it. We don't believe it.
If we have the mind of Christ, then we have the capacity to do that. By the way, it's really interesting. On the seventh day, God rested, right?
Yep.
But he rose on the eighth day. And
Uh-huh.
and eight's the number of new beginnings. So the creation was complete. Everything's put in place. But Jesus rises on the number that on the day that numerically would say, there's stuff to be done. This is a new beginning. Let's get after it. And therefore you have the four gospels, and immediately you have the book of Acts, which I wish they'd call the book of actions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it Acts sort of sounds historical. Actions is not history, it's current.
Well, I mean, it was written as history, so yeah, I get it.
Well, I think it was written as motivation. I mean, it was written for. I don't think it was written for its historical value as much as it was for its outline and direction for what you got. The Gospels, guys. Now do this.
I have a tendency to agree with you there, Bob, but we have to be really, really careful that doesn't turn into religion again.
Well, I don't see how it would, but okay. I mean,
making rules and saying if you don't do this, you do this. I'm not saying that's what you're saying. I'm just saying that we have. I mean, that's what came to my mind.
There's some rules that I'm going to be religious about. I'm going to put a chair under my butt before I sit down. I'm going to. I'm going to.
It's a law of gravity.
If you want, if you want to call it religion, taking care of the environment around you, or being kind to your neighbor. I mean, those are all actions.
Yeah. I
guess you could call them religion if you want to. I don't see them as rules as much as I see them good counsel. I don't think taking action is a religion. I think the ologies that get attached to those actions become religion, but the actions itself are not religion.
Right. Well, God, God put forth laws of nature, and there's a big difference between rules and his laws. I think, Philip, what do you got?
Yeah. Yeah, I was, when Bob and you were talking about, the finished work and what is finished and what doesn't look finished. The first thought that came to my mind was those number of verses in Paul's letter to the Romans, chapter 8, where he says that the creation is waiting for the sons of God, being not gender specific, but the creation of man to realize who they really are. And as I think, this is what I see it is, as a certain percentage of mankind presently living on the earth comes to that realization, I think at some point, obviously I won't know which percentage, at some point, everyone's going to come to realization who they are. And those that
Right.
resist it will probably feel a lot of pain and anguish, because if they resist the love of who they really are, they're going to have a crisis. And that's why I see the word judgment comes from it's translated from the Greek word krisis. So they will feel, and they have all the time in the world, at least in my mind, to come to realization. The longer they resist, the more pain they will endure. Anyway, that's kind of my take on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an opinion, eh?
Yeah, I get it. It makes sense, kind of. Okay, I'm going to jump back in where I was here. We
Hold on,
talked a little bit about grammar and stuff. So,
Stan's
I
got his
got,
hand up.
okay, Stan.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just thinking, seem to recall a scripture that talks about all things being subjected to Christ. But then it goes on and says, but yet we don't see all things subjected to him yet. So there's I think our finality of it being finished, but somehow we have not realized it in our understanding yet.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, that was kind of my point.
Do you think that's a place we're supposed to stay, or that's hey guys, get with it?
It's definitely not a place to stay, I don't think.
Right.
Lenny, did you have your hand up? No? Okay.
No, I was just giving a thumbs up.
Oh, okay. I saw something flash up on your corner. Okay, so as we talked about grammar is the environment that makes creative storytelling possible. So God is the environment that makes all creativity possible. And just as grammar doesn't tell a story, God does not create anything without inviting creatures to co-author their stories and co-design and co-create themselves. Does that make any sense to anybody? Jesus demonstrates what this creativity looks like when God and the human find freedom in each other. So when we find freedom in God and find that in each other, he's free in us, we're free in him, that Jesus demonstrated that when he was on earth. Okay, so if I have an active role in creating the value and beauty of my life, it would be very useful to understand how this process works. Life events constantly cry out for interpretation. Each of us develops interpretative frameworks by which we give meaning to these events. And these interpretative structures can become rigid echo chambers where we only hear what we already know, and the richness of life's symphony is replaced by a monotone voice. Every event confirms what we believe. We no longer hear the invitation. We are no longer seduced by the other. Is there a way of being both logical and imaginative, reasonable and open to the transcendent? The more certain we become of who and what we are, the fewer opportunities we'll have to be astonished, to be surprised. For possibility can never be reduced to certainty. If something's possible, it's not necessarily certain. And if it's certain, it's no longer a possibility. Does that make sense? We can't be astonished and certain at the same time. Because we can't experience astonishment and certainty in the same way. They just doesn't work.
When nothing's certain, everything's possible. That's what you're saying.
I don't know that that's what I'm saying, but yeah, maybe. It depends. I think it depends on our own outlook, probably. Because a lot of people think that things are certain. You know, they have certainty in things that they think are a certain thing. And I will have to say, probably this points more toward, quote, organized religion. You know, they have certain certainties that they believe that aren't really certain, but that's what they believe they are.
So
And,
would the absence of that open possibility, isn't that what
the
you're saying?
absence of that would be possibility. Yeah.
So when nothing's certain, everything becomes possible.
I think when nothing's certain, everything becomes possible. Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I said.
I missed the when.
Okay.
When you said that first time.
Yeah, that's a good saying, Bob.
It is.
It is. It is. It's a tenet, boy. It is
Yeah.
it's a tenet of life, Stan. It really is.
Okay.
Well, oh, shoot.
Go ahead.
Oh,
Go
can I
ahead,
say
Dana.
something?
Yeah,
Oh,
please.
well, that causes us to not be so judgmental as well. Because
Absolutely.
it just helps us so much because we're free from, judging everything and figuring it all out. And, but we can operate in our true identity and in thankfulness and, all the positive things, the positive vibes, of life and living. Oh,
Yeah.
it's great.
It talks about this certainty and astonishment. Astonishment is more of a surprise, to us sometimes. It just we feel like it sneaks up on us and in that moment of surprise, we have to choose. Do we want certainty or do we want truth? The beauty of truth isn't something we possess, but it's an invitation into an adventure of the unknown. We're surprised because something outside of our frame of reference is challenging our stability. It's in this moment of doubt that opens us up to a faith much richer than we've ever known so far. That story, we can go back to the story of Rebecca in Genesis and how she questioned who she was with God. She said, why me, Lord? Whatever. And then in Genesis chapter 25, verse 22, it starts like this. It said, now Rebecca was unable to have children, but Isaac pleaded with Yahweh on behalf of his wife because she was barren and she did get pregnant. For Yahweh responded to Isaac's prayer. Now, during the 20-year wait for children, there is no mention that Isaac fathered children with his handmaid like his father Abraham. Isaac loved Rebekah and was patient and prayerful until the miracle happened. Stan, what you got?
Yeah, I was just thinking about what Bob said again about uncertainty being sort of like a gateway to possibility. And it occurred to me that another word that could be used for a possibility is unveiling.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that would work too, for sure.
I was in a discussion about mystery, which is unknown, which is uncertainty, by the way. Mystery is uncertainty. And I realized when Joseph saw Pharaoh's vision, what occurred there was the Israelites became the successful working class of Egypt for 400 years, man. I mean, Egypt was the wealthiest nation in the world, and they weren't making bricks with no straw and all that stuff for 400 years. That came when, and here's a scripture that you always want to remember. And then there was a Pharaoh who knew not Joseph. There was all of a sudden there was a guy that didn't relate to the original mystery. He wanted certainty. He wanted something he understood, and thus the whole thing went south, and Egypt went down the tube. Actually, the power of uncertainty is that it as I think Melissa said or Dan has said, it just releases us to utilize the mind of Christ. How powerful is that? I mean, more Theo and a whole lot less ology, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That being said, I have a friend that started a church down in Louisiana. And he said, when people come to him and question the way he operates the church, he said, well, for one thing, this is a theocracy. And he said, and just so you know, I'm Theo. So, in other words, the buck stops here.
Yeah, there's religion starting to happen.
That is religion starting to happen.
You bet. Been there more than one time, and I'm not interested in the T-shirt. So
Yeah, you're right. It's a funny statement though.
It is.
Okay, I'm going to go back to Genesis chapter 25. After after Rebecca got pregnant, right? It says in verse 22, it says, during her pregnancy, Rebecca could feel twins thrashing and struggling with each other inside her womb. So she went to inquire of Yahweh, saying, why do I have to live like this? And Yahweh answered her, saying, the two sons in your womb will become two nations, and the two peoples within you will become rivals. Now, we don't know whether God answered her in an audible voice or in a dream or in a vision. We don't know how he answered her, but we just know that it says that he answered her. And I believe that God answers when we talk to him in many different ways, many different aspects. And so basically Rebecca was the first biblical character who questioned her own existence. What is this? And so this is kind of an example that despite the freedoms that we have to construct our own narratives, we often reach a dead end. And the meaning of our existence becomes exhausted or barren, as in Rebecca's case. She felt maybe even betrayed. Who knows, Sometimes our stories grow old and stale, especially if we tell them over and over. No, I'm kidding. But they do. That means that everybody has a story, and we love our stories, and stories are good to learn from. We become overly protective of what we believe and certain of what to expect. A lot of people do. I mean, you can't change their mind from what they believe. they're so caught up in what they think is their absolute that you can't hardly change their mind. So we settle for the security of the familiar and lose touch with the source of creativity and the capacity to invent, and the consequence is that life becomes boring and predictable. So, Rebecca lived along, and Isaac loved her, and he wanted a child with her, and they ended up with 2 sons. And she actually asked the question, why me? Why do I have to go through this? And he told her that the 2 sons would be different. And then in verse 25 and 26, he said, it says this, it says, the first one came out reddish and covered with hair like a hairy garment. So they named him Esau. And I meant to look up the name, and I didn't do it.
It means hairy.
It means
Esau.
hairy something.
Yeah, I had a good friend named Harry that I always called Esau. As a matter of fact,
there you go.
Harry. Yep, there you go.
And his brother came out with his hand grasping Esau's heel. So they named him Jacob, which the Hebrew word for Jacob sounds like the words for heel and cheat. And if you look in Genesis 30 or 27:36, it says, there's a footnote that says Jacob's name comes from the Hebrew word for heel and can be translated trickster, heel grabber, or cheater. And in that verse, it says this, says Esau exclaimed, Jacob, that heel grabber. The name fits him perfectly. Now he has tricked me twice. He stole my birthright. Now he's robbed me of my blessing. And if you remember the story, he conned Esau into relinquishing his birthright through a bowl of porridge and whatever, and then he masqueraded as Esau and went to his father with food who couldn't see very well, and ended up having his father give him the blessing. So, and back in verse 26, it says that even in the womb, Jacob was jostling for the right to be firstborn. So, Stan, what do you got?
Yeah, I don't know if any of you or many of you follow Barb Simons on Facebook, but she has some interesting understandings or takes on things. That's a lot of the stories may not just be literal, but actually pictures of what's taking place within us. So I've always found that fascinating when she shares those things.
Yeah, I mean, she does have real interesting takes on a lot of stuff. Philip.
Yeah, I was also thinking about, was it not Rebecca, the same one who, where a servant of Abraham traveled about 500 or 700 miles or somewhere around that to meet a certain woman at a well and bring her actually to the home of Abraham and his son Isaac to get married. Now, is that correct?
He actually sent his servant to find a wife for Isaac.
Okay, yeah. So
among his people, and he wasn't looking for specific. He was looking for a wife, but he wasn't looking for Rebecca. And what happened was they had traveled all this distance and they were dry, and they came up on a well and there were some women there, and one of the women said, "Can I give you water?" And that was Rebecca.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And boy, what was that servant's name, man? I used to love that story, and
I've forgotten the name.
Yeah, and he took her back, and Isaac saw her a long ways off, man, and knew she was the woman.
He loved it.
Well,
So-
I thought it was fantastic that the fact that Rebecca was not certain whether she would fall in love with him. She just trusted God. I mean, you don't get marriages like that today.
Well, they,
Using
yeah.
hypothetical situation, but there was a lot of there was no certainty that it would pan out.
It's kind of ironic that that Jacob was the trickster and the cheat, because in the long run that came back to bite him, because he went to work for Rebecca's father.
Yep.
And to get Rebecca's hand, and then Laban, Rebecca's father, said, no, you have to marry the oldest one, and which was Leah, and Leah ended up, and so then he had to serve him another length of time to get Rebecca's hand also. So
actually what Latham did was put a veil on her, and he didn't tell Isaac he was going to marry Leah. He just got him married, and when Isaac pulled the veil back, it was the wrong woman, and he had to work another 7 years, by the way, a complete number in order to.
right.
And yeah, absolutely.
But wasn't that Jacob the son and not Isaac?
No,
Oh yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah,
You're
no,
right. Not Isaac. It was Jacob.
you're right. It was
Ab-
Jacob. Yeah.
Right. But point being that what went around came around on Jacob.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was kind of my point. Well, anyway, a lot like Rebecca, each one of us is filled or pregnant with otherness. There's more to somebody's playing with balloons in my house. I didn't want anybody to think somebody was shot somebody. There is more to me than the self that I'm certain of. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty confident of myself, but there's a lot more to me than that, even by a long shot, because of who I am, and because I'm a child of God. You know what I mean? Becoming aware of the complexity of conflicting voices can be uncomfortable, or sometimes even unbearable.
You
But
make a
that's-
really interesting point about Jacob. I mean, when he finally wrestled with the Lord, and said at the end of the night, I'm not going to let you go till you bless me. What God did was change his identity.
He did. Yeah. Yep. So, like I said, becoming aware of the complexity of these conflicting voices could be uncomfortable or unbearable, but it's exactly that discomfort that opens us up to greater understanding and fruitfulness. We're not only, as humans, we're not only conscious of the perspective of the world around us, but we're also uniquely tuned in on itself. As a human, we turned in on ourselves. And so we don't really only contemplate what we observe, but we also reflect upon our own significance. Don't you think that's true?
Man, that's good. The world, not only the world around us, but the world in us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So in pursuit of meaning, truthfully, something mysterious happened. You're talking about mysterious things earlier, Bob, and God has mysteries hidden for us, not from us, but for us. And so truly mysterious things happen. The process of meaning or making kind of comes into focus and becomes aware of itself. And so it mirrors onto itself the infinite complexity that unfolds. Sometimes when we think of things, sometimes twins are born also and they fight each other. You know, it's just it's two ideas that come together and don't mesh. I don't know about you, but I've had that happen. I know that's because we have conscious thoughts and we have unconscious thoughts. So we can have two things that conflict going on in our mind at the same time, and which is the multiple voices we were talking about. I was talking about earlier.
There's a pretty cool outcome, though. In the end of the story between Esau and Jacob, they make up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the light at the end of the tunnel is not a train. I mean, it's really a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes. Yeah, and that was kind of, you kind of the next point kind of says that we don't they don't have to be identical twins to eventually come together and get along. Melissa?
That's so true. I just have been sitting here thinking of Romans 8:28, which I think is such a comforting verse, because you know we've been discussing, God doesn't send things to happen to us. He doesn't cause you to be sick or cause you to lose a job or all those various things. They are the things that happen to us are the result of our own choices or someone else's choices or society as a whole's choices. Thinking about the earth there. But so God often gets blamed for those things, but he doesn't bring those things. But what he does do, while we're not always saved from our own consequences, I will say that there are times I can look back and my consequences could have been way worse than they were. So I don't know what to make of that. But although God may not save us from our consequences, we can be confident that he's there working within our situation for good to come out of it. And I'll just read, I mean, we all know it, but just Romans 8:28 in the Passion. So we are convinced that every detail of our lives is continually woven together for good, for we are his lovers who have been called to fulfill his designed purpose. For he knew all about us before we were born, and he destined us from the beginning to share the likeness of his son. And in other translations it says we know God works all things together for good. So I love that analogy people often share, or metaphor, I always get the two mixed up, of the tapestry, our lives as a big tapestry. If you look at the backside, it looks like a bunch of tangled threads, ugly threads going every which way and not making any sense. And you flip it over and the other side is just a beautifully woven tapestry where God has taken everything, every little thing, and what made good out of it. I mean, I more and more I believe that nothing is wasted with God, nothing, and that's a comfort. Yeah, I still had to go through it, but man, to think I didn't just go through it for nothing. Nothing is wasted with God.
Buckminster Fuller said there's no such thing as pollution. It's just resources that we haven't figured out how to utilize. And think about that. I mean,
Interesting.
It is interesting. And by the way, it takes you out of certainty and puts you into possibilities thinking that way. But think of, there's no pollution. There are just resources that we don't understand how to utilize yet.
Thank you for sharing that too, Melissa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So each one, we all begin our existence basically in a pre-conscious state. The unconscious is the firstborn in this sense, but it doesn't mean that nothing intelligible is happening. I mean, when we're formed, the inner ear is formed even before the brain is completely formed. Messages are received, stimuli is perceived, hints of meaning and unformed images abound, but no established framework of interpretation exists. So the unconscious remains wild. And I love that because, it talks about we talked about the two twins and how Esau was the wild, hairy guy that was out in nature and everything. And Jacob was more the, for lack of a better term, the con artist and the slick salesman. And I should never say this kind of things, but I do. And anyway,
little self condemnation there, Jeff.
So in this in this unrestrained space, then the messages that come forth take on unique form. And without the constraints of time or logic, the things that are formed seem to be chaotic when viewed from the perspective of the conscious. So when we understand that despite what seems to be basically untamed chaos, it's also a state of wholeness and peace. Now that seems to not even be in the same realm, but it kind of makes sense and it kind of doesn't. So you take that and chew on it. So prior to the emergence of a separate self, everything is one. A pre-conscious baby doesn't distinguish yet between itself and the reality around it. Everything that happens and all that exists is part of a whole. So this pre-conscious state is kind of a paradise or a blissful union. There's no separation here, no lack or no desire, no evil, no good. Everything simply is. These pre-conscious memories are preserved even after the emergence of the self. So even after the baby's born, they still have these memories of being in the womb and safe in the womb. And another real significant aspect of the unconscious is it's more than an individual psychological phenomenon. It's where the boundary between self and everything else just disappears.
Mm-hmm.
It's a point of contact with what lies beyond ourselves. The unconscious turns into a great depth. And some people look into that depth and they try to better define it. And, one of those people was physicist Carl Jung. And he spoke about the collective unconsciousness and how this intuitive knowledge is not personal. In other words, it's not gained through the experience of an individual, but rather it's collective and gained through the experience of the species. Now, this is Carl Jung. Just as animals are born with instincts specific to their species, so humans inherit a pearl of initiative wisdom. Layers of experience have accumulated through many generations to form a pattern of knowledge. Now, I'm just going to throw this out. I believe that that's more along the line of God made us in his image. That's why we're different. But, and all, I understand the part about the animals being different, taking on different characteristics. I don't think I want to put human beings in that same category, because I think we have more connection to God than that. Okay, the scriptures locate the unconscious as the space in which God often meets with us in surprising ways. The Bible is filled with stories about dreams or unconscious events in which wisdom is given and meaning is unveiled. And there's no neatly defined boundary for the unconscious. And it might be this lack of boundary that allows the divine to merge with our humanity. The lack of boundary, maybe. Esau was the firstborn. That implies a certain priority. The unconsciousness formed first, and given the inheritance of a collective wisdom, it's a prior necessity for the conscious self to come into being. And so, the study goes on to talk about how Jacob and Esau wrestled, the stealing of the birthright and all that kind of stuff. But it talks about their fight within Rebecca's womb. And it says, one of the things it said was that babies love sleep, but these two boys didn't sleep much. They kept Rebecca going. So, and as we grow it talks about how the two boys grew, and it parallels that with as how we grow in the knowledge and love of our God, and how every one of us are different, and the message and the things, the messages and the interpretations that we get are not identical. God speaks to us, each one of us, in our own heart, in our own language, and whatever in our own understanding. And that speaking with us like that creates that matrix of meaning. That's where the matrix comes from. So if you've ever focused on solving a problem for an extended period of time with no solution in sight, then you'll understand this. While not giving it, you'll have that struggle with that, and then all of a sudden, while you're not even giving it any attention at all, and you're busy with something else or something totally different, the solution to that other problem just pops up in your mind. Have you ever had that happen? It's a thought process obviously continued without our conscious awareness of that. So this is an example of the unconscious mind working and God working in our mind. So, and I have had this, I don't know whether y'all have or not, but I've had this where I was thinking on something or studying something, and then all of a sudden I felt like I was being swept into a different world. with a totally different understanding. And truthfully, I'm probably half asleep when that happens. I may be totally asleep, who knows? But regardless, I end up with a calculated recollection of it. But it's a memory that is completely there, completely triggered on a whole different level than what I expected, So I don't know. I think God can give us infinite insight into things in our life. And Melissa, I love what you read. It's absolutely true. God turns everything. And as long as we put our mindset on the good and not think about not dwell on, I should say, not dwell on the things that we're trying to get through, but dwell on the good things that God is showing us that are going to come out of this. It makes a whole difference in our attitude. So, Stanley?
Yeah, JL made me think of there have been times when I've been struggling to maybe remember someone's name or an answer to a situation or problem. And then all of a sudden, it seems like from out of nowhere, the answer just kind of floats through the air into my brain. And I'm like, just suddenly aware, that's it,
Yeah. I love it when my wife will say, what was their name? We'll see somebody and they'll go, oh, what was their name? And then 5 minutes later, she just blurts it out. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So I'm way past that by then, So, Bob, what do you got?
Well, I really pretty much live a life of epiphanies. I mean, I just have stuff come to me. And as a matter of fact, I was just sitting here thinking I should start a religion called Episcopalians, right? Episcopalians. Yeah, exactly. Come and listen with us. We do everything in King James. Everything would end with,
Yeah. Every time somebody says about King James in English, I think of there used to be an a cappella group that went around singing, and in fact, the name of the group was a cappella, and they had a song called King James, and it was the funniest thing ever. I wish I could remember it. It was hilarious.
What would the First Baptist Church think about that, Bob?
Well, we've been struggling with that. Our numbers are diminishing. We accept all denominations, 5s, 10s, 20s, 50s, but we've just, it's just not been coming through. And of course, I thought about becoming an Anglican, but I think Episcopalians would work really well. And yeah, just.
Well, the Baptists, they started before Jesus died because John was the first Baptist.
Well, and a lot of people don't know it, but Lawrence, I mean, you go out on 6th Street here in Lawrence and the First Baptist Church is there. I mean, I didn't realize that the First Baptist Church started out in Lawrence, Kansas. I'm impressed, aren't you, JL?
It's pretty much in every little town you go in.
Well, so they can't even agree on that, right? I mean,
yeah, I know, right?
By the way, this is all because Dana hadn't laughed yet. I'm just,
yeah.
I got to make. She's got her hair down today. She needs to have a little hilarity today.
Looks good. Well, I hope y'all got something out of this. I felt like I kind of rambled, but I hope it was interesting.
Well, it really speaks to the renewing of your mind.
It does.
That's and keep in mind that means you started out with a new one and you are going back to the new one.
Yeah.
Renewing. It's not a newing of the mind. It is a renewing of it. It's already there. Already there.
And this, what I talked about kind of deals with timing and time, how that works through time, and the timing of everything, and how all that comes together. Well, and you know, we know that it's God that brings all that stuff together. So yeah, Dana, what you got?
It's our lip reading session.
Oh,
You're
sorry.
muted.
Things pop up and I have to get them out, rid of them. Well, what I was thinking that really means to me, because it's just so far out from what I've been thinking about, and then now, you know, getting my mind on all that you're saying, is it just means live a life of non-resistance. And
Amen.
yeah, just know that, like Melissa said, it's all working together for good. We don't have to figure it all out, but to just be in love and, you know, relax,
Amen.
enjoy things. Yeah.
Amen. Amen. That's awesome. Philip.
If you've got it all figured out, you don't get it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to know if Stan, I would like to speak to Stan after the meeting. Is that fine with you, Stan?
Sure.
Okay. So
They're-
if we
they're gonna talk
disconnect, I'll have to connect back on again.
They're,
Because
they're, they're going to talk about us again, crew.
Now, would I
Say.
just stay on, or how would that work?
Yeah.
Now what will happen is we'll probably get disconnected at the end. We'll have to both connect back on again.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. One last thing, just I thought it was humorous. My daughter Jennifer, who's in the cloud of witnesses now, I remember when she was little, we were riding along in the car and she read the sign on this building and it said First Baptist Church of so and so, and she said, "Is that really the first one?"
Yeah.
Well, ironically, in Lawrence, Kansas, we also have the Second Baptist Church. So we have the first and the second. So
So all the rest of them are third or later, right? Is that
Yeah,
what you're saying,
yeah,
JL?
I
I'm
guess
just
so.
saying, yeah. I was thinking, by the way, about the conflicts between Jacob and Esau, and you know the countries of Dubai and Abu Dhabi have a real disagreement going right now. That's over in that part of the country. Apparently, the people in Dubai don't like the Flintstones, and the people in Abu Dhabi do. And I just, I'm sorry.
I'll be down with you.
I got
Oh boy.
I just heard that, and I thought you all wanted to know that. It kind of goes down the lane we're going here. You know,
Thanks
There
for
you
sharing,
go.
Bob.
starting to add
Yeah.
quality content. You know.
There you go. All right. Well, we will not meet at 6 Mile tonight. We have something going on. So
Called a Chiefs game, right?
no, we have a political thing we have to go to. Son. We have a son that's in politics. I'm sorry, but he is. he's a good guy, and he's having a political thing, and we go support him. So, which we should.
Yeah.
He's not in our county, but we still go support him. So.
If he's having it during a Chiefs game, if I was managing his campaign, I'd do a little rescheduling on that deal.
Well, truthfully, the Chiefs game will be over by the time this thing starts.
Oh yeah, right.
Is there a difference between being political and politically correct in the US, or am
Well,
I
yeah,
another
absolutely.
Absolutely, there is. Yes.
I would dare say there's a lot more political incorrectness than there is political correctness. So yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that would be PI instead of PC, so
Yeah.
it works for me. I like pie.
Well, go figure, right?
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, it's been great to be with y'all today.
Yep.
Let's remember, by the way, Roger Evers is home. Okay, some of you that don't know. And so he's, I guess, from what I understand, he's doing very well. So let's keep him in Carolyn in our prayer to, for wisdom and strength and whatever. Kitsy is on her way to, well, she's probably there. She's there. Down to see her kids in South Carolina.
Mm.
She's going to be down there for a week, so let's remember her. And anybody else that's going to be gallivanting around or whatever, do whatever. So it's good to be on. So,
Yeah.
Brother Jeff, could you close us in prayer, please? You just put something in your mouth, didn't you?
No,
No.
no, but lunch is cooking.
Oh, okay.
Hang on a second here. I'll show you, then we can pray. We'll know what to pray for.
Okay.
Let's see here. I'm not sure how to turn the old camera around on this thing, so wait a minute. Can you see that?
Vaguely.
It's blurry, but I can see it.
Those are hot dogs cooking.
Oh,
I'll
We have a-
fix that blurry
we-
business.
We have a wiener.
wiener.
I had to win at something today. Thank you, Bob.
You're welcome.
Well, Lord, we love you so much. We thank you, God, that you listen to the contemplation of our heart.
Yes.
And I just ask, God, that you'll hold us in your embrace today, that we might hear what's on your heart. And as we go into this gorgeous day in some places and tragic in others, in at least in our country from storms, etc., God, that you'll be with those that are afflicted and help us who live in comfort, Lord, to remember them and lift them before you. We bless you and thank you in the Son's Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Weird boss.
Again, thanks for being on today. Love you all. No 6 Mile tonight. And we'll see you all. And have a good week. And we'll see you all next week.
Okay. Thank you.
So
Shalom,
Philip,
shalom.
Yeah.
so Philip, you call me on Messenger or what is it? How's it work?
No, I don't use it anymore.
Oh,
I'll go back onto Zoom.
okay.
All right.